We have our guest right here in the studio. He's the presidential candidate of the Africa Action Congress, AAC, Omoyele Sowore. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a delight to have you here.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, Cam.
Thank you.
I'm interested in how old you are, and I want to confirm you're 47 years old.
That's correct.
That's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing how people look younger than their age these days. But I want us to begin on this note, how relevant, your age is in this election. There's been a lot of talk about we need to kick these old people out. But the recent election in America had the two top contenders, even older than you are. How relevant is age in governance?
I think it's important to not make it an age issue, because we've had very young politicians in this country that are not responsible. And we've had old people who are also irresponsible. But it's not about the age of persons now, but the age of ideas. And our problem has been that the age of ideas has destroyed this country. And most people who have old ideas are definitely old people who have been around for almost 58 years in Nigeria now. And it is time to show them the way out of this country, to show them the way out of governance, so that this country can enjoy fresh ideas, freshness of life, people with character, integrity, people with capability, competence, and stamina, because Nigeria needs us. Nigeria would need us. And I hate to say this, I don't like when the media says to Nigerians that it's hard choice to make. What is hard between choosing a Sowore, 47 years old, with exposure, education, who is strong, who's got character, integrity, someone who's got experience as well, history behind him, and old people who have destroyed this country over the years, who you can tell how they run. This is Nigeria of their dream. This Nigeria that's broken with no roads, no hospitals, no water to drink. How is it hard to choose between us, those of us who are young, who have got a lot to offer, and those who have expired and who have nothing to offer?
All right, let's take it to our other guest in Abuja studio. He's a presidential candidate of the Young Progressive Party, YPP, Kingsley Moghalu. Obviously, it would make sense to actually ask you that same question as to how age really should play out in how Nigerians decide who should lead them come 2019. Your party is named Young Progressive Party, Kingsley Moghalu.
And if my figures are right, Kingsley is
55
years old.
Absolutely.
Younger than...
older than Sowore. Yes, Kingsley Moghalu, what has age got to do with it, really?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think there are two things we need to know about age in Nigerian politics. The problem with a lot of the old recycled political class is not necessarily their age, but the age of their ideas. That's number one. The second problem is that they have nothing much to show for their age in terms of their impact on the Nigerian condition. Nigerians are far poorer today than they were when Nigeria became independent in 1960. So we can see very clearly that the older recycled politicians have done a very bad service to Nigeria. And that's why we're saying that there's need for younger, more visionary leaders. But I don't believe that people are qualified to be president of Nigeria simply because they are young. I think it's very important that people have the necessary experience, that people have the necessary character, that people have the necessary compassion for the people of Nigeria. I, for example, have worked for the United Nations for 17 years. I've been a deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I've been a professor in one of the world's most prestigious universities. So my claim to what I am aspiring to is that I have much to offer my country. And it's not just based on my age. However, the problem we have in Nigeria as well is that every society must be regenerated in terms of its leadership, and that's not happening in Nigeria. Nigeria has been held hostage by old men and women for far too long who have nothing to show for their age. That's the real point. their performance has been a complete disaster.
It's all right. We'll be back with you shortly. It's interesting, really, to know that both of you seem to be on the same page as regards the relevance of age.
Yes.
But then you have said severally that you would never be part of coalition. There's the coalition of united political parties. There's the presidential aspirants coming together, which initially was highly rumored that you were part of, but you came out publicly to say you had nothing to do about it. Nigerians are concerned about when we have bright ideas staggered, there are night one parties. What is wrong
for them to decide?
What is wrong in coming together?
I want to correct the impression that I said I don't want to be part of coalitions. In fact, when I started by talking about coalitions. But I do not want to be part of coalitions that don't have clarity, that don't understand where they are going, or don't have a central agenda to wrestle power. Because it's not everybody who is running for office today in Nigeria that is doing it for the purpose for which I'm in it for. And it includes that some of them are fronts. And when I met some of these young people, what I said to them is that before we form a coalition, let's weed out those who are serious and those who are not serious. And let us go for primaries in our respective parties, come back and have a coalition. And I was surprised that Kingsley fell for the initial plan, actually. You know, I have a lot of respect for Kingsley, but he went and joined PACT, and eventually he signed an MOU with them, and he lost. And when he discovered that he had lost to these guys because they played him, he bailed out of it. I didn't need to do that. The kind of coalition I wanted is the coalition that I have. And that is the coalition of Nigerians who are disenchanted, who are dissatisfied, who don't want to have anything to do with the past, who want to have a clean break from the past and move forward. So let me say it to you that we will still eventually come together. Okay. As a matter of fact, I am saying it that, you know, there will be a separation of men from boys and eventually of men from old men in this country. That's where we are headed. And I'm happy that we're starting to see that. So many of the presidential aspirants who started with us are no longer there because they couldn't become candidates. Now we have a narrower pool of people to pull from, to choose from, and that's where I'm at. And I'll say to you once again, and it's important for Nigerians to understand that there is nothing there to look at when you're talking about the people that converged at Obasanjo's house yesterday. Obasanjo has been such a bad human resources manager for this country, choosing the worst presidential candidates for this country. One was sick and dead for 5 months. One of them didn't even know where his PhD certificate was. And Obasanjo is always there to gang up against the progress of this country, starting from his days.
Those are very strong. Those are very strong allegations, because Obasanjo would actually say that he's one of the most patriotic Nigerians. What you're saying, in other words, what you're saying is that you're not moved by that endorsement of
No, I'm not moved by it, but we have to start speaking
Atiku.
truth to power. Obasanjo is not. You should stop lying to people that he's a patriotic person on the media. And I'm not accusing you guys of doing it, but it's time for the media to also take a stand on the side of Nigerian people. Obasanjo is not patriotic. Babangida is not patriotic. The pastors and imams that met yesterday to reimpose on Nigeria a bribe taker.
You know, we'll rather stay with you.
They are not patriotic people.
We will definitely come back to that, because Kingsley Moghalu is there in Abuja. Kingsley Moghalu, yes, former CBN governor. You have been to one of the most prestigious institutions in the world, the Fletcher School of Law. You're a professor of practice and all of that. But do you think Nigerians are discerning enough or desperate enough to actually be able to say, look, we want a clean break from what you might describe as the past, and we want a future that has a definite direction, a future that can actually take us to the promised land? And people will say, yes, Kingsley Moghalu, but we don't even know his party, YPP. What can you really do right now to sell not just your idea? Of course, Sowore is here to do that, to actually convince Nigerians that you are the man for the job.
Well, thank you very much, Ngozi. There are three things that Nigeria needs today. Nigeria needs a leader who can, you know, heal Nigeria and build a nation. Nigeria is not a nation, it's a country. Nigeria needs a leader who can wage a successful and decisive war against poverty. And Nigeria needs a leader who can restore Nigeria's standing in the world. Yes,
Nigerians know what they need, but right now, Nigerians want to hear clearly the how. Yeah. We know what the problems are, but how,
that's what I'm saying.
The how is what Nigerians are interested in now. Yes.
Ngozi, I will contest your statement that Nigerians know what they need. If Nigerians knew what they needed, they would not be entertaining the antics and the deceit of the APC and the PDP. So I would argue with you that your statement is not correct. Nigerians are not very sure what they need. Many people know that the political class has failed, but do not have the courage to move forward. So what I am doing is this: selling my message of hope, my new vision for Nigeria, my vision for economic transformation, my vision for nation building, and my vision for a diplomatic resurgence of the Nigerian state. So I am telling Nigerians, look, here is how we can move away from poverty. Here is how we can create jobs. Very concrete ideas. I propose to establish skills training centers in each of the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. I propose, as president of Nigeria, to set up a 1 trillion naira venture capital fund that will invest in new businesses to be started by millions of unemployed young men and women. This is how this country will grow economically. I propose that innovation will be the centerpiece of Nigeria's economy. So I have very clear plans and very clear ideas.
It's all right. Back to our Lagos studio very quickly. Omoyele Sowore, let's get a bit close and personal. Yes. Human rights activist, pro-democracy campaigner, founder of Sahara Reporters. Many even said that, you know, that online platform played a critical role in shaping opinions in 2015, and even, if I can be a bit bolder, helped the incumbent win the election. Divided opinions as regards that. But what really are you bringing to the table? We've heard the story of how at 12 years old you learned how to ride a bicycle, to fish for the family. How have these things shaped you to become, you know, perhaps a president?
Yes. So I have, of all the candidates, I have the longest history of engaging with Nigerian people, doing what is right when it's difficult to do it. I started at the University of Lagos in 1989, fighting along others like Gani Faweme, Wole Soyinka in this country, Femi Falana, to restore democracy tonight. So the democracy we are enjoying today in Nigeria was as a result of sweat and pain and blood of people like me, not me alone. And that was when I was 21 years old. I was behind Abiola fighting to de-annul the June 12th election. After the annulment went through successfully with the military, we eventually kicked them out in 1999. So I want to remind you that this is not the first time I'm doing this. It's not 2015, but it's understandable that some people did not get to the internet until 2014. So they wouldn't have understood that I also fought against third term when Obasanjo was trying to become a Mugabe in Nigeria, and that I fought against the Yar'Adua cabal when Goodluck Jonathan was prevented from becoming the president, which was his rightful constitutional right at that time. They also forgot that I fought corruption in this country by exposing corruption at all levels in the last 12 years that I started Sahara Reporters. But most importantly, that I'm an entrepreneur, that also I'm a lecturer, a professor that taught for 8 years at a university in New York. And also that I attended one of the best universities in the world, one of the 10 best universities in the US, Columbia University where I studied master in public administration. So I'm the first person who's going to be president of Nigeria who actually has a public admin knowledge.
So how will all of this bring to bear in terms of the deliverables come 2019? Do you understand the economy enough?
I'm giving you the insurance.
What do you even think is the most fundamental problem that Nigeria faces today in such a way that you can begin to...
When you say most, you're assuming that we are facing just one.
Yeah.
We face 10. And in solving the problem, you must solve all the 10, start at, with the 10 at the same time.
Yeah.
First is security. Of course, nobody is secure in this country today. Second is the fact that we are all in darkness. We don't have electricity, power. And without that, what Kingsley is proposing will not happen. You cannot have skill acquisition centers if you don't have electricity. You can't have skill acquisition centers if you don't have infrastructure. You can't have progress and end poverty when farmers can't take their goods from where they are grown to the market where they need to sell them. So infrastructure is key for us. We will fight corruption, which everybody knows I know how to do very well. In fact, I do it better as an individual than the entire government of Buhari has ever done. I know how to create an economic system that will make people prosper, because economy that they are talking about is not the kind of political economy that empower people. It's the economy of World Bank prescription. And World Bank came out 3 days ago and said they are sorry. They have been leading Nigeria in the wrong direction. And the last, instead of investing in health and education, they asked you to invest in other things that will help the companies that are coming from the West. But I have done it so far. We were the first in this country when we were in our 20s fighting against the World Bank. You have heard about the anti-SAP protests in the early 90s.
Yes.
We were saying that education was more important and health was more important because without health, you can't have prosperity, you can't have production, and you can't grow the economy. The World Bank just accepted that, but we are not going to get the Nobel Prize for it. And what I'm telling you, to remind you again, is that you ask, and I'll answer very quickly. What do I know better than all these people? What do I have to bring to the table? What I gave you in terms of my background is the insurance that whatever I'm promising you in our manifesto, which we call Spicer Hit, will be delivered without any inhibition. Because there's courage and there's integrity and pedigree to do it.
Kingsley, we're talking issues now. You are a political economist, a lawyer. You mentioned earlier that you work with the United Nations, a professor in international business and public policy. What are the main issues right now ahead 2019 election? He made mention that skill acquisition is impossible without power. What are the top priorities for you as a candidate?
Electric power in Nigeria is a top priority for me, and here's my plan for power, because I prefer to go into specifics. I have a plan, and for the power sector, the first thing we need to do is to decentralize the national grid. The second thing that we will do is to move the production of hydroelectric power from Kainji Dam and gas-powered electricity to shift it to industrial centers in this country as a priority. Places like Lagos and Ogun State, places like Kanu, places like Aba, places like Onitsha and Nnewi. These places will get 24-hour electricity supply. And the implication of that is that the prices of all things produced will crash very significantly. 40% of the prices of goods produced in Nigeria is electricity generation cost. So if we bring it down, we reduce prices, and that will affect the poor people of Nigeria very positively. Then my government is going to establish a new market for renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy. So this is how we are going to be going for homes and just normal offices. But for industrial production, we will move hydroelectric electricity to those places. So this is my vision for the power sector. We are going renewable energy under my administration as president.
But you will need people with the right skill sets to actually drive the power sector, will you not? I wonder what you will do with education. Education right now, there are about 13 million out-of-school children in Nigeria presently, and our budget is nowhere near the recommended 26% of of the national budget. It's a budgetary allocation. It's about 6% or less now. How are you going to ensure that?
I have.
Go ahead.
I have a plan. Thank you. I have a plan for the education sector. Now, the first thing is that under my government as president of Nigeria, we will move the budget for education to a minimum of 20%, growing it progressively up to 30%. From the 7% where it is today. The budget for healthcare will move from 3% to 15% at a minimum. Now, how will we invest this new budget for education? We will invest it in 4 things. The first is teacher training. We are going to retrain and recertify teachers throughout Nigeria so that they can teach our children to be fit for the 21st century marketplace. Secondly, we are going to reform the curriculum, shifting it more towards innovation, science, technology, and entrepreneurship. Everybody graduating from a secondary school or a university in Nigeria should be able to know how to run a business. The third is that we're going to change how young people learn. Today in Nigeria, our children just cram their books, notebooks, and regurgitate it in exams.
That's all right.
That does not encourage original thinking. So we're going to change. As a professor in the United States, my 100% is divided as follows. 60% for your original research paper, 20% for your ability to discuss in class, and lead discussions, and 20% for your physical presence.
It's all right.
And then the fourth reform is that we're going to focus on educational infrastructure. Every child in Nigeria under my presidency will have, at a minimum, a laptop in secondary schools and in universities.
We'll be back with you, Kingsley. Because of time, let me come to Sowore very quickly. We appear to have two professors here. There's the issue of diversifying the economy from an oil-based one. In the early days of independence, we were so rich in agriculture. What are your thoughts in this line? What are the actionable plans you have for Nigeria?
You know, you must have heard about the controversy that started with my proposal to export cannabis. And a few days after that, Coca-Cola signed a $4 billion deal with Aurora, a company that is researching and growing cannabis. And South Africa legalized cannabis. And the whole of the world is now in the business.
Remember
Canada,
you read the other day.
Canada is already 70% short of what they need. I'm just saying that not to scare people, but to tell you that even many of these ideas that Kingsley is talking about is already embedded in our Spicer Heat documentation regarding education and health. And diversification of economies to look at this country. You have arable land, but the problem is that most of our farmers grow crops and 90% of them are destroyed because we don't have storage for them and they can't take them from the places of production to the market. So we are not in the game. The Chinese people are making more money out of Nigeria in agriculture than we are doing because they have post-harvest processing. They can take your pepper and ginger from here to China, whereas our farmers don't have those opportunities. Yeah,
but do we even really have farmers? I mean, young people are not attracted to farming anymore.
We have farmers.
Attract them.
We don't have a government in this country. We have farmers. We have teachers.
That's a huge indictment.
It is a huge indictment, but it's the truth.
The last time I checked, there's a federal government.
Nigeria is failing. Nigeria is failing as a nation state. And earlier we admit that we don't have a government so that we can put the right people there, the better. What they are doing around here that they call government is papering over cracks, is experimentation with social issues, experimentation with, you know, ideas and programs and projects.
Yes,
you can see even in Lagos that's claimed to be the best. There's no road between here and Badagry.
We get that point, but very quickly before I take it to Kingsley Moghalu in Abuja studio, you say you will make minimum wage 100,000 naira.
That's right.
Government is still finding it difficult to decide whether it will be 24 or 25.
Because government's priority is not to pay workers, it's to pay themselves. Do you know how much a senator earns? A senator earns a salary of 2,076 Nigerian workers, because an average Nigerian worker is collecting $38 per month.
Where will
an
average
Nigerian senator is taking home 540 million naira.
To take the money from the politicians?
No. We will definitely not be paying them in legal wages because a senator is not entitled to 13.7 million naira as, you know, as allowance. But the truth is that you have enough in this country to serve everybody.
I hope you know that you will need the backing of the National Assembly.
We will need the backing of the National Assembly, but we most importantly need the backing of the Nigerian people to do any project, because the National Assembly does not or will not own Nigeria or Nigerians. Nigerians own the National Assembly, and that is the reason why it is important that we start paying attention to our workers. There's nobody in the world that can live on 18,000 naira wage per month. Nobody. But we are doing that disservice to ourselves, and we are defending it, you know, by claiming that where will you get the money from? The question is that there is money, there's enough money in this country. Let me give you one example. The Minister of Petroleum Resources, State Minister for Petroleum Resources, Kachuku, revealed on national TV that he lost $60 billion to not taking royalties from certain oil companies that have been around in the business for 10 years because of a lacuna or a loophole in a law. And what we are proposing to pay workers is just $1.5 billion every year if we do it to 100,000.
Kingsley Moghalu,
if you deduct that from 60 billion, everybody is still doing very well. But you have incompetent leaders, you have people with no capacity, you have people with no innovative ideas. You can't move this country anywhere.
Let's take it to Kingsley Moghalu. Kingsley Moghalu, is 100,000 naira what the Nigerian worker deserves? If you're president, is that what you'll give them, or would you take it higher or even lower?
You know, I understand economics, and I understand how to fight poverty without creating inflation, which of course will work against the poor and the workers. Now, the minimum wage is something that we should not take a populist approach to it. We should improve the minimum wage. A minimum wage of 18,000 naira is absolute nonsense. Nigerian workers are getting ripped off, and it's increasingly hard for them to manage their lives. But as to whether we should pay them 100,000 naira or not, I would subject that to a proper study so that our decision is informed and sustainable. That would be my approach, not just to come and make promises that are not backed up by research, just so that I would be popular. This is what creates problems in economies, and that's what's creating a problem in the economy today. The government of President Muhammadu Buhari set up a 500 billion naira social intervention fund that is just recycling poverty. I don't see anybody getting their 5,000 naira a month. I don't see what productivity is being generated from that fund. That's why I'm going to turn it into the 500 billion naira contribution to the 1 trillion naira venture capital fund, and the private sector will bring the remaining 500 billion. So the way we think about economics is to create wealth, not to recycle poverty. And while we work to improve the welfare of Nigerian workers, it's important that we do it in a way that is measured, well-researched, and well thought through, and not knee-jerk. So we should increase the minimum wage, but I wouldn't tell you that the minimum wage should be 1,000 naira or any particular figure at this time.
And
it is something that requires proper
I want to
study.
jump in here. And Kingsley is known to be a researcher. If Kingsley hasn't researched by now what minimum wage should be, it shows that Kingsley is not prepared to lead Nigeria. We have done our research. It's out there on the internet. You can find how we intend to pay for it.
Absolute nonsense.
I like Kingsley, but I'm surprised that Kingsley is not, at this time, understanding what he needs to pay workers. After having admitted that 18,000 naira is rubbish,
you can make
then he goes on to say that
that's fine.
he already knows what he wants to invest in the capital market. He knows what he wants to give to entrepreneurs.
It's all right,
He doesn't know what
Have
he
you-
wants to pay workers. Kingsley, I'm surprised, but I'll see you in Lagos when you get here.
Kingsley, have you mulled it? Have you done your research? I mean, what Sowore is saying is that you have not prepared as far as the issue of minimum wage is concerned. And you were going to say something about that. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think that myself and Omoyele Sowore can get into a contest about who understands economic management of Nigeria.
No, it's not true, Kingsley. It's not true.
The point is this.
It's not true. I find that very degrading. I find that very degrading.
There's no need.
I find that very degrading that you are talking about the economics as if there's a difference between the economics of World Bank, Kingsley, and the economics that put people out of poverty. The World Bank economics, you understand, is the one that put us in poverty, the one of the Washington Consensus. Kingsley, there's nothing you want to show me. We all lived in America. We know how workers are faring over there. Don't come and tell me that we can't get into an economics contest. Why not?
That's just the fact of the matter.
What makes you better than me economically?
That I did not know.
Allow
you made a statement that I don't know what to do about the minimum wage.
Because I expect you by now. Look, Kingsley,
this
is the same thing we argue about Buhari, that he was never prepared to be president. Kingsley, we have 128 days.
I'm far more prepared
and you don't know what you want to pay workers.
I'm worried about that.
I'm worried about, I think you're qualified, but I think I'm better qualified because I'm better prepared at this time as to what to pay workers. You don't know it.
Okay, so
but
Kingsley, what are the things?
You want to pay the guys who are in the entrepreneurial world, people who we have always been subsidizing, you know, the rich people, but you don't know what to pay the workers who are making this country work. I'm surprised. Sowore,
please let me say very clearly that cheap popularity will not help the Nigerian economy.
It's not cheap popularity, but
So that's what you're doing. You're being populist.
An unprepared
You are
candidate,
being populist.
an unprepared candidate
You
who doesn't
don't
know what
understand
in
economics.
terms of pay
Okay,
You're making
gentlemen,
gentlemen,
so that you can be
them
popular.
nonsense wage.
Gentlemen.
It's not going to help the Nigerian
I need us to be a
economy.
bit
All right.
presidential right now.
Yes,
This-
and I guess it's the energy of youth and the passion really to drive, to move forward. That is what is driving
and
this.
of course,
Gentlemen,
TVC is going to have a presidential debate. So you guys
absolutely,
will- you
and
guys
the
will
debate
come
has already started.
They're not doing debates between.
yeah.
Don't hide your candidates.
It's all right.
When we want
Okay.
to do the debate.
All right,
Kingsley
thank you very
Moghalu
much.
is the presidential candidate of Young Progressive Party YPP. Thank you for joining us and
And
sharing your thoughts from Abuja.
Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate, African Action Congress, AAC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for